What's up guys, HellaBass back here with another video, and today's gonna be something completely different. We're kind of still cooped up in the garage. It's still spring, winter's still hanging on, the lakes are almost open, fishing season's not quite here. We got this whole coronavirus thing, we have this shelter in place thing, so really shouldn't be out doing a whole lot, staying here with the family, but still gotta do some stuff in the fishing. Working on getting my boat together, but I'm also getting kind of wanting to like make some baits and do some tinkering and do some things like that. So today I want to show you how you can make baits for free, and basically how you can turn baits like these chewed up old baits from the bottom of your boat and turn them into beautiful looking baits like these, and it will cost you nothing. All right, so there's a few reasons why I suggest doing this, or see if you're interested in doing this. One, the thing I can think of the most is this, there's no reason to throw this stuff in the trash. Definitely don't throw it in the lake. You don't want to throw these baits in the lake. They pollute the lake. Fish sometimes put them in their mouths, sometimes they swallow them. It can get stuck in their digestive system. It's just not good. Don't throw used baits in your lake. Put them in the bottom of your boat and either put them in the trash or recycle them or give them to a buddy that recycles them. So you may not fish enough yourself to warrant this, but if you ask your friends, your buddies, they'll probably every season give you bags, containers just like these full of used plastics. And all you got to do is sort them just a little bit. And so basically, for my sorting, what I do is I kind of just do natural green pumpkin, lighter colors in one bin. I mean, they don't have to be all perfect. Even some of these lighter colors, some of these pumpkin colors, just kind of avoid your blacks, blues, purples, anything that's going to like darken your baits too much. And then everything else that's dark, put that in a separate, right? And then you'll get some really good colors, and I'll show you how these colors work out later. If you have certain colors you use a ton, like June bug, red bug, or some kind of special watermelon or something you love and you use a lot, keep those separate. You can remelt those and remake that color as well. As long as it's a solid color and not a laminate or nothing fancy, you can pretty much remelt those and keep them the same color. I guess the other reason it's lots of fun, you always have downtime, you have rainy days, you have days you can't get out fishing, too windy, too cold, whatever. This is something you can do, stay involved with fishing. It's kind of a lot of fun. Plus, if you ever wanted to get into bait making, this is a good way to try it before you spend a bunch of money on molds and plastisol and colorants and glitter and all that stuff, until you really try it and know that you can like it and you're going to stick with it. And the last thing, to make your own baits, it's really cool and satisfying to catch some fish on a bait that you made yourself. So those are the top reasons to try this out yourself. So what are the materials you're going to need to do this project? There's a few things you're going to want to get before you get started. A couple glass measuring cups. Most people say Pyrex is the best. They don't shatter typically. You can find those. Most all these materials you can either find like used in a garage sale, maybe some old ones in your mom's cupboard, or in the kitchen that nobody's using. You can sneak them out, but once you use them, just keep them in the garage. So if you can't find them, you can either buy them cheap. I'll put some links to where you can get them super cheap. Otherwise, just kind of scrounge around. You can find most of these materials. So let's see what else you need here. Old butter knife. Just something to stir with. Doesn't have to be anything fancy. Super helpful. Have a decent pair of gloves. You'll be handling some hot stuff. So like these leather insulated work gloves work great. There's lots of gloves. You don't need to buy special gloves just to do this. You'll need an old microwave or a hot plate or something like that. Hopefully you can find a used one at Goodwill, a garage sale, or one that somebody's throwing out and use that for free. Obviously you're going to need a bunch of plastic, like we talked about before, saved up. And then the one thing you probably may need to spend a few dollars on to get started, unless you can be really lucky, is buy a couple, or just buy an inexpensive mold. You can find an open pour mold like this, flat side on the top, or be able to find an open pour kind of top pour mold like this one, which is a very popular way to pour baits, and we'll show you how to use that in a little bit. So either way, if you can find some cheap molds, that's the one thing you might invest a few dollars in to get this process started. So just these aren't quite melted yet, but they're starting to soften up. Give it a little stir with the butter knife and repeat the process. There you go. We're starting to melt now, starting to get a liquidy. We're getting close. You can see that ooey gooey goodness starting to mix all those colors together. See, we're starting to get really liquidy now. You can see we're really close. Make sure you want to stir. Don't get too aggressive with your stirring. You want to keep as little bubbles as possible. Check the temperature. With our digital, we're pretty close. 340 is about where we want to be. 320 to 340 degrees. We're just going to give this a few more. So we're going to stir it. We're going to give it a few more seconds, and then we are going to get into pouring. So a couple of other optional things you may want. A digital thermometer or a candy thermometer just to check your temperatures. Otherwise, you can just do it by trial and error and by looking at it. A couple clamps might be good. Some wood clamps if you have those. It helps keep the molds tight. Not a necessity 100%, but it is a nice thing to have. Another good idea is probably a face mask. Not wearing one now, make sure you do it in a garage. Do it outside, do it in a ventilated area. Do not do this in your basement. Do not do this in your mom's kitchen or your wife's kitchen, or you're going to be the last time you probably do it. All right, let's take a look at our plastic. It's looking pretty good. We're just going to gently stir it. The temperature's good. Make sure we get the salt and everything, the glitter all suspended in there. And then we're going to get to pouring. So we're going to do this open. Definitely want the gloves for these steps. These things get really hot. You can see we're just going to pour into this open mold. Nice and easy. Probably not super level here, but this will still show you how this type of mold works. A little bit right there. That's pretty good. We'll be able to pull that out. That actually turned out pretty good without practicing much. That's the flat open pour mold. Now we're going to do the top open pour mold. We're going to start with this big Senkos mold here that I have. And speed is kind of the key here. You don't want your plastic to cool. You do have a fair amount of time. You probably have a couple minutes of pouring. You want kind of a slow, steady stream. Too fast and it will fill up and clog. Too slow, it will cool on you. You just want a nice, even pour. And you kind of want to overfill it just a little bit and let it kind of sink in there. And then kind of move to the next one. If you see it sinking in, you can kind of re-top it off. That one's actually doing pretty good. So there, we'll top that one off a little bit. We'll come back to this one. It helps if it's wintertime. If your molds get too cold, you might want to warm them up just a little bit, maybe bring them inside, or after you pour a couple times and pull them, they kind of heat themselves up and they kind of stay warm once the plastic kind of warms it up. But ultra cold molds don't pour super great. It's probably like 50 degrees in my garage today, so not too bad. But when you get like really cold, that's kind of an issue. All right, so those ones look pretty good. Getting into these little bit smaller molds here. Same thing. Nice steady stream. You don't want to go too fast. You don't want to go too slow. You kind of get the hang of it the more you do these. You kind of know what works for you, whether you pour down the center or you pour down the side of your molds. You just kind of get to know what works for you. Never hurts to overfill them a little bit. They tend to keep sinking in. It's good pours today. See, once it sinks in there, you want to keep filling it up. Jump to that fourth cavity. All right, one last mold to do here. If you feel like things are not pouring well, you can always stir or you can stop and kind of reheat up your plastic if you feel like it's cooled off too much. All right, the plastic's cooled down a little bit. We're going to heat it back up and restir it a little bit. All right, let's check the plastic. Got my gloves on. It's looking pretty good. We just checked the temperature not that long ago. We just had to hit it again. 320. Yeah, maybe just need a few more seconds in there. plastic is looking good. Give it a little stir to get the bubbles out. Get the salt and the glitter all mixed up. Alright, so now we're getting the injector out. We're getting the injector out. We're going to show you how to injection mold. So if you have fun with the open pores, you like that, or you can score a deal on one of these, I'll send some links to some eBay or Amazon, some places where you can probably score some used, inexpensive molds for cheap. Alright, so they definitely want clamps for these type of molds. You get in there, you push your pump all the way down, you get to the bottom, you suck up a big bunch of this plastic, and then you carefully get it over your mold. This gets a little messier than the other way, and then you slowly press down until you feel it fill the mold. And then top it off just a little bit. You want to make sure it fills. You can get a little, let that sit in there. You can definitely overspray. Don't do this in an area that can't be cleaned. We'll try one of these molds just to show you a few different options. That's enough to do this one. That's a little bit bigger mold, we'll see. First mold, we're going with this big, like 6.5 inch Senko. We'll pull this apart. So we had, this is kind of typical here. So we had 2 really good pours and 1 partial pour, which happens usually on the first try with each mold until you start running a couple. You definitely might get this where it cools a little bit and you get kind of just cools off and it seals off. Not a big deal. We can either cut that one down and use it as a Ned head or a short one, or just throw it back in the plastic and remelt it again. So you don't really waste anything like this. You have a couple options when you're done with the baits here. Is you can just lay them out, this is what I like to do, just on like a plastic tackle box or a table or something like that, or you could drop them in a water bath. Totally up to you what you want to do. So like for this one here, we can just cut that off right there and use that as a shorter version, like a jig worm or a Senko or a Ned, and then we just throw this back in the bucket for next time. All right, we're gonna check out a few more molds that I did. So here's a few open molds. This is that first kind of craw trailer one I did. Kind of a simple mold, but definitely can get you started. Decent little jig trailer. Here's a couple of kind of Erie darter type baits. And this is kind of a silicone mold. These ones I poured a little sloppy, but you get the gist of it. You could definitely get these type molds pretty inexpensively to try out, and they're simple to pour with the Pyrex cup. Great little drop shot baits. Now let's look at a couple other molds we poured. Here is the 4 and 6 inch kind of Dinger Senko stick style bait. And you can see most of these turned out okay. I got a little glob in this one, kind of clumped up on me and blocked that. But you know what? We can cut that down, use that as a nice little Ned rig, and then we still got 3 good baits out of that. So, all right, here's the 4 inch only mold. And like I said, we got 3 out of 4 good baits on that one. So, trial and error. That'll just go back in the bucket, but still 3 good baits out of that. All right, time to look at our injection mold bait. We have a little bit of overspill here, not a big deal. Like most of the stuff, once it cools, it just peels right off. So you can just throw that back in the bucket for next time. Let's open this up. And those came out really nice. They all come out You know, the injection mold's a lot more reliable than the open pour as far as getting good consistent pours, because you've got the pressure that you can put in there to kind of force it. And those are good looking baits. They're a little bit dull, so I might add a little oil to the mold to make them a little shinier, but you know, those looked really good. We'll just pull those off. Lay them out here to cool down. Pretty happy with how these are turning out so far. And then we've got a couple of the injection mold. So here's kind of a beaver style bait, kind of a craw beaver creature bait. Nice looking little bait there. Either use that Texas rig or as a jig trailer. And there's one that's more of a traditional beaver, a little bit different than traditional beaver, but definitely he'll get bit. Nice little color for dark water. Last but not least, we've got kind of a pit boss mold here. This one actually shoots 2. So you can see there's 2 nice looking baits that are similar to a pit boss. They come out all separated, nice little hook slots, move a lot of water. And you just pull those off, and that goes back in the bucket. So there you go. Just getting out on natural light, wanted to show you some of the colors here. You can see there's a little bit of variation, you know, based on bait to bait here, but we got the 6.5 inch kind of custom mold, and then we've got some 5 inch and some 4 inch. And you can see there's just a lot of interesting colors. Blue flecks, red, gold, you know, you just really get a nice mix of colors in these repours. So if you like custom colors and unique colors, this is kind of a really way to generate a nice color that definitely will catch fish in dark water for sure. And here's the green pumpkin. Kind of reminds me of almost like the Big Bite Baits tilapia, or like the Reaction Innovations Christmas tree green pumpkin, but there's a lot going on here. These are really almost like these better. You get green pumpkin like candy magic, kind of. There's purple, there's golds, there's blues, there's greens, you know, everything you can want, and they really kind of shimmer in the sun. So definitely like what I get when I mix these colors like this and just kind of sort them and mix everything together and see what comes out. All right, so there's some of the baits, little sampling. Hope you enjoyed the video. If you like this, if this is any interest to you, if you want some of these baits, you know what? Let's do a little giveaway. If you like what you saw, you'd like a sampling of some of these baits to try them out, leave a comment below. Let me know. I'll pick somebody and I'll send at least 1 or 2 of you for following and watching all the way to the end some baits. So if you like this, let me know. If there's any questions you have about the process, leave a comment. Thanks for watching to the end. We're going to get through this together. We'll all be out fishing soon enough. Be safe out there. Make sure you like and subscribe, and we'll catch you next time. Here to help you catch more bass and suck less.